Hey everybody, it's the Epistemologers here today, and our topic of the day is the power of the mundane. We are both engineers, and so we like to bring what is not necessarily seems near impossible into reality. We like to go and reach further, and the way we do that is by understanding every little piece and then making it all simple. And that is the power of the mundane. We take something that seems far away, hard to achieve, break it into little tiny tasks that we need to accomplish, and then we understand each of those tasks, and we accomplish something that we once thought was impossible. Is that a pretty good summation of the power of mundane?
I think so, yeah. I think I could add something. I mean, a lot of times with engineering, what we're trying to do is achieve something fantastical.
Yes.
At the end of it, a goal that we're trying to accomplish that's so ambitious that it would take much resources, and a lot of time.
Yeah.
You consider that to be a resource. But it would take a long time and a lot of people and a lot of energy and money and all these things to achieve it. But at the end of that road, you end up just learning everything there is necessary to achieve that goal. You acquire those solutions all along the road, and the acquiring of those solutions is really just making that fantastical thing more and more mundane, one step at a time. Mm-hmm. It's like you're trying to eliminate the wonder of that end goal by stitching it together and bringing it into reality.
One small, iterative step at a time. And
extremely small.
Extremely
the smallest steps.
The smallest we can manage, right?
Well, in software, you're working with logical steps, and every assumption has to be well understood, or it will introduce problems. So, and that's why software is a proof of understanding. It's because you have to work out all of the mathematical relationships between all the entities that you're working with, all the models and abstractions that you're working with, in order to build the thing. So engineering is an interesting task. It's an interesting skill set.
And it's not necessarily the only method of progressing. However, it is the only method that will progress consistently. Meaning, we can figure out something intuitively and put stuff together intuitive. In fact, there is much of human history that was, progress was obtained through intuitive means. However, breaking things up and putting them together is the way that we fully understand how to accomplish other things on top of it. So once we break into small tasks, we can see that this task might overlap with something else that we wanted to accomplish. We're
reducing one big solution into many solutions.
Many smaller solutions.
A lot of times we'll have to figure each solution out as we go.
And we're
kind of at the frontier of knowledge.
And we might not know how exactly to get to that big solution. We might only know that there are problems in getting there that we need to solve, smaller problems that we need to solve, right? So we might not know all of the tasks that we need to know at the beginning, but as we progress, we will see what else needs to happen.
Yeah, so, and the multiversal model of this, the structure of the universe, is essentially a set of unique, independent, observable universes. And they are all, there's many of them, and they're all interrelated with each other. And some of them are related by how they are connected by cause and effect chains. So you'll have one universe that acts as an early moment, and another universe that acts as the next moment. And then you get these big timelines out of each individual universe. And so why I'm talking about this is because engineers are able to, by focusing on problem solving and building solutions, they're able to pick the trajectory that we take down this chain of universes. Because we're all kind of traversing anyway.
From moment to moment.
Yeah, from moment to moment, our consciousness is bridging these gaps. It really just follows the most comfortable feeling, the most mundane, the least resistant, the most plausible next step as it rides this roller coaster that is the multiverse. And so with focused attention, we can pick our trajectory down that. So you're able to kind of steer your car as you go. It's like a choose your own adventure book, and where you get to a point and you can pick which way to go.
Yep.
But you do that through focusing moment to moment, focused attention.
And if it's unfocused,
go ahead.
We're sort of at the whims of what happens. You know, whatever happens when you're unfocused about it, things will just crop up. You know, other things. Life continues to happen, and you'll just be moved along those timelines or moved along the possibilities without really any control over them.
Yeah. Yep. And so what knowledge we build will often direct us on what to focus on.
Mm-hmm.
So our current worldview is a really important part of how we know what's possible, what's important. So if we know that this particular next step is important, we'll do what we can to accomplish it rather than something else. And that will forever set our trajectory down that particular path from our perspective.
Right.
So the engineer is a person who's interested in shaping their world. I have a fairly broad definition of engineer.
Right.
So they need to understand their world and the constraints of the medium that they're working with in order to do that. So knowledge is a really important part of understanding what our choices are, and what you can't do, what you can do, and what's most effective, and all kinds of different considerations. So you really only understand that when that understanding is imparted by a good explanation. So in engineering or in science or in philosophy, really that's why your focus is on finding better explanations. They will they'll tell you what to focus on when you need to, and you kind of if you're taking them seriously, you can kind of just go with the flow they present. But we're talking about the power of the mundane, and it actually is very powerful over time, because you have to build up a momentum towards it. You have to have a sustained attention towards an ambitious goal.
Well, and this is where we should suggest people should expand what they see as mundane, right? It should be, if you want something, anything, but if you want something to occur, you should be open to the idea that can happen. You should start to feel as if that thing that you want to happen will just happen, because of course it will. It is mundane. It isn't amazing to you. It isn't awe-inspiring.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It is mundane. Of course it was going to happen this way.
Yeah. The more plausible it is, the more comfortable it feels,
the more likely,
the easier it is for you to cross over into that particular universe.
Yes.
So to speak. Because moment to moment, every moment is a separate observable universe. It's static. It doesn't move. It doesn't change. It just sits there in the multiverse, and your consciousness is really just passing over it.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of conceptually, that's kind of how it works. So as you're passing over it, you get chances to branch, because the multiverse branches, and the branches will have different weights.
Mm-hmm.
They're weighted based on the proportion of universes going down one path versus the proportion going the other path. But they're also weighted based on your own personal inclinations and what you locally know. So you can kind of adjust where you're going, because you're able to affect your own local situation.
Right. You control you to some extent. And
Yeah.
so, if you, for instance, if you always wanted to take that trip to India, but you never thought that that was possible, it would not be mundane to you, and you would not prepare to try to get to that trip. Even if you had to save for a year, you could certainly save for a year, and you can make decisions and possibilities open up for you to go on that trip if you really wanted it. But
Yeah.
and you really thought that it was possible. So if you think something is possible and you want it, you can direct your attention towards achieving that goal. But if you don't think that's possible, you'll direct your attention elsewhere. It will not be mundane. It'll be fantastical.
So this is kind of where we get advice about, how you can achieve what you dream, and how faith, you can, if you believe hard enough, you can achieve it. But remember, you have to work hard, and you have to take action, and this kind of advice, because it does make sense in light of how the multiverse is structured and our capabilities within it.
Platitudes.
So
I've always found that platitudes make a lot more sense when you put it into a framework that can be well understood like that. Because those platitudes always seemed nonsensical to me.
Or absent of any real explanation for why that and not something else. And it's hard to make sense if you're just given a rule of thumb.
Right.
Without knowing where it came from.
Right. So you can achieve those things that you want to achieve, because if you truly make those mundane, if you make the goals and the steps mundane, you can achieve them. Now, obviously there's some obstacles in the path of your goals. And those problems, yeah. I'm not a millionaire. So I don't have the financial resources to do whatever the thing I want to do is. And maybe that's just me giving constraint, or just me not understanding that I have the ability to do more ability than I think I do.
Yep.
But those are problems, and we shouldn't ignore them. So you shouldn't ignore reality for what it is. If you're 3 feet high, if you're only 3 feet tall, you're probably never going to be an NBA player, no matter how much you wish that you could be. And
you have to face reality.
Yes.
Essentially. So the reality is an ever present, eternal, objective set of rules about what you can accomplish.
Yes.
But those rules gave you everything, and they gave you freedom as well. They gave you the ability to decide what part of the universe you want to experience.
Yes.
So you do have some limited options, and really finding better explanations is really about modeling that universe better so you know what your options are.
And engineering more solutions, and seeing more options. You can, when have better knowledge, you can have better options. There exists knowledge to make a 3-foot high person an NBA star via maybe some sort of cybernetic implants, or genetic engineering, or I don't know, chopping off the legs of somebody and putting them on it, stapling them together.
There could be some way to do it.
Frankensteining a person. There could be somebody, and there exists options out there that have not been discovered.
Well, options are control, in a sense. So you have the ability to cause this, or you have the ability to cause that, and you get some semblance of control over things. And as we know through popular sayings, things like knowledge is power. There's basically a close relationship between knowledge and control.
Mm-hmm.
Because the knowledge you have, the better it is, you tend to, as a side effect, get more options, more wealth. It's all about wealth.
Wealth being more options. I mean,
more options. Yeah, just different words for the same thing. But it's all related to knowledge. Mm-hmm. And knowledge is key it's a key thing. This is how we steer the ship. If you're looking at it multiversally and you're looking at it as sort of a roller coaster ride, that where you have some ability to control which tracks you ride on as you're going along. The ability to choose the tracks is based on what you know.
Right.
Entirely. So if you don't know that there's an option over here, you're not going to think about it. You're not going to focus on it. And it might feel foreign to you. So it's not going to happen.
Right.
But if you arrange everything just right, maybe it might actually be the most comfortable option. And it's very find yourself down that track. So a lot of what we do in the mundane sort of sense, the everyday life that most people live, is that sort of thing. We try to learn more about what's going on around us so we can make more informed choices and do everything that way. With an engineering mindset, all that becomes described in terms of problem solving.
Right.
And
also you work on your skills of making those options and abilities easier, right? So when you understand the principles of engineering, you understand more about how to gain better options. Yeah,
that's true. Yeah, solutions become options.
Yes.
As well. So you can actually build out parts that help you build bigger parts, or you can build tools that will make something more efficient or help you build something. And it just comes together slowly, part by part, transformation by transformation, choice after choice, bringing more and more of that far-reaching goal into the mundane. And that's kind of how we build the future. So the future is as fantastic as we all want it to be, because the future is shaped by what we want.
Yes.
And so if we have this recognition that we can accomplish
what we want,
literally anything that is physically possible can be caused by knowledge. And that is a very optimistic view, because we can really just take us from here to the stars as fast as physically possible. And guess what? There's no speed limit. It's infinite.
Yeah.
That you can build knowledge at a rate that's unbounded, because it's just information.
That's right.
So there's no physical limitation to that. And that means that there's so much possible. And recognition of that makes it somewhat difficult to dwell too much in the pessimistic side, thinking how bad things can happen physically, and expecting that they're going to happen all the time just doesn't make as much sense, because we just don't want them to happen.
Or more importantly, wanting something to happen, but thinking that it's impossible to achieve those things, right? Unless it is constrained by the objective laws of physics, those things are possible.
Right.
We can do a lot, and the objective laws of physics do not constrain us a whole lot. We can do a lot with that.
Yeah. There are some bounds, but they leave an infinite, almost infinite
set of options.
Range of, like we have a huge degree of motion.
Yeah.
You don't need any more than that. And the laws of physics themselves don't present problems at all. The only thing that presents problems is ignorance of what's possible.
Yes.
So all we would need to do is, and problems surface as they manifest because of ignorance. So really, all you have to do is just through trial and error correction, solve the problems that arise, and that is how you build knowledge, and it will take you into the future all the way. It's possible that you might, if you're very good at solving problems, it's possible that you might not encounter a problem that kills you.
Yep.
And you just keep going.
And keep going and going and going. Like the energy.
Even death
is
not physically mandated.
It is not.
Right? There are some situations where you can solve that. You can solve that problem. Really, a problem is, again, it's a conflict, a logical conflict between ideas. And that can exist between different logical realms, like between what is happening and what should happen are two distinct logical realms in that you can't get one from the other.
Mm-hmm.
But problems can still exist between them. So if you have a goal you want to achieve and you haven't achieved it, you know, because, right, why have a goal that you haven't, you know,
Yeah.
it doesn't make sense.
Why have a goal that you've already achieved? Yeah.
Right. So, but the very nature of you not having this goal achieved yet is really solved one of two ways. You can either solve for it and actually achieve the goal, or you can decide that goal wasn't for you.
Right.
Like there's a better goal for you to achieve or something.
And then at that point, there's no conflict because...
Right. Yeah, it's possible that you might learn that goal was physically impossible.
Mm-hmm.
That's possible. And so at that point, you realize it's not a problem to solve because problems are necessarily solvable.
Right.
So that's just how they're defined. So in that case, it's not a valid goal. But what's interesting is that we don't usually make goals that are impossible because we can intuit. All of us naturally can intuit what's physically possible because we have the laws of physics within us.
Right.
We interface with the universe through a microcosm, which is a version of the universe. If you can think of it like a hologram, it's inside your mind, and you are constructing it moment to moment, and really it's synchronizing as best as it can with the outside world, and you're manipulating things inside that little microcosm, and your muscles basically just interface against that and make it happen in the real world. But in your mind, all you're working with is your microcosm. So this is how you can, through the visual field, you can glance at all these objects and basically really quickly build a simulation, a virtual reality simulation in your mind that represents all these things. And in an instant, you can kind of like through memory of that, work your way through it. Like if you were to close your eyes, you have it. You have the model in your head, and you can kind of work your way around those objects because you have a working model in your head and in an instant. And I think it happens so fast because it's using quantum computation to do it. It's also, I think, using quantum computation to build this simulator because it's using the same laws of physics as the universe does.
Right.
It's the macrocosm, microcosm duality. And this is actually in the Hermetic principles as the as above, so below things. Have you ever heard that? So
yes.
It's actually talking about the relationship between the macrocosm and the microcosm. So, and all of us have consciousness that builds these microcosms. So really what we're able to do in there is model the world around us in this microcosm, in the structure of the microcosm, and just work with that. And if the model is good, then we tend to survive. We tend to have options, and we tend to build things out, and we tend to be comfortable.
Right.
And so knowledge builds up in the structure of our model. All of this is very interesting to me, and I could just keep going on.
No, you could, and we should probably end this one because we are getting a little off on our tangent.
But I mean, it's all kind of ties back into the mundane.
Yes.
Because you're
if you can model it
really just
in your head.
Yeah.
If you can see how that would not be crazy, right? If you can see how that would not be crazy.
If it makes sense.
If it makes sense to you, there is a better likelihood that will happen.
It tends to happen, and actually that's what you see with the placebo effect.
Yep.
And that's what you see with the law of attraction.
Mm-hmm. Which is essentially the placebo effect. The placebo effect is
essentially, yes,
is the law of attraction made manifest, and is incredibly annoying to any of the hard scientists who have to study around it.
hard to say. They're so hard.
Yeah, whatever.
No, it's really just establishment science.
Yeah.
That doesn't have an explanation for
Why
the
it's happening.
placebo effect.
Yeah.
Or doesn't want to explain it, but it keeps coming through in the statistics, so they have to have some kind of word for it.
Yeah.
But it's essentially a byproduct of consciousness, essentially. This brings me to my last point.
Oh, okay.
You want to have the last point?
No, go ahead. You got it.
Well, what we're talking about has been known for a very, very, very long time. It's ancient, and we know about it through the esoteric teachings, things like magic, things like that. But I don't really endorse the general use of magic unless it's engineering, because engineering is a subset of it. But the difference between engineering and other magic is that engineering dispels the wonder.
Yes.
You don't want to give too much power to external entities, necessarily. There's some exceptions to that, but in general, to stay on the safe side, know what you're getting into. You want to essentially understand your options, and if you have an ambitious goal, work diligently to solve the problems that get in your way of that goal. And so engineering is really my recommended kind of magic.
We should do our tune in next time for a discussion on magic. And we were the Epistemologers. I'm T. That was Aza. Please like and comment about the mundane and engineering. And we'll see you next time.